Assessing group work, a virtual flowchart. Most students and their instructors can tell you stories about positive and negative experiences with group work or working in groups. Many of these stories are related to the positive and negative experiences with the assessment of group work. So, what does an instructor need to know about assessing group work? First, when considering an assignment, project, or task for a grade that involves group work, the instructor first must consider, am I assessing the process or the product of group work, or some combination of both? Stated in another way, is this assessment formative to help improve the group work process, or is it summative to assign a grade to the final product? Traditional approaches to group work were all about the product. One grade given to the product, and the whole team gets the same grade. More recent approaches recognize that not all students contribute in the same ways, bring the same effort to the process, and have the same mindset about group work. When beginning our path towards accurate assessment of group work and start considering our many options, we must begin with one oh so crucial question. What is the instructor trying to achieve by assigning group work? There are many reasons why an instructor may assign group work to their students. In a 2016 study, Skinner and colleagues found that small group work learning activities with opportunities for practice, reflection, self-evaluation, and feedback improve students' confidence and interpersonal skills. They also found that working collaboratively is important because interpersonal skills often remain a challenge for new graduates, and that support and mentoring in this domain by supervisors may enhance the transition to work. As well, in a 2018 study, Orante and colleagues found that when executed properly, group work assignments naturally become a platform to enhance interpersonal skills for students. There can be many different positive outcomes of group work, but the intended purpose of the group work dictates which form of assessment will be appropriate. We will be covering 3 possible examples which show some common group assessment scenarios. All of these examples are driven through the flowchart by their intended learning outcomes. So, what is the goal of your group work assignment? Example 1. Formative feedback. To expose students to new viewpoints and perspectives on course concepts and get feedback on their own work. The next question that must be considered is, will the assessment be summative or formative? In this example, the assessment should be formative, as feedback is the goal. Formative assessment, assessment for learning, provides opportunities for students to get feedback on their contribution to group activities, identify what they're doing well, and what needs to be a focus for improvement. Once we know what the point of the group assessment is, and whether it is formative or summative, we should then decide, who has input on the assessment? Will the assessment come only from the instructor, or are fellow students involved in the process as well? Is self-reflection or a self-appointed grade part of the assessment? After answering this question, we can find a way to break down a student's grade in an appropriate way. So, who might be a source of formative assessment or feedback? The instructor. Formative instructor feedback is a valuable assessment tool. By showing students their areas of strength and areas which need to be developed, they can achieve a realistic awareness of their own performance level or acquired knowledge. Other students. Peer feedback can expose students to new viewpoints and perspectives on course materials which they may have not considered. It can be a valuable tool for instructors' own time management and help students find ways to improve their own work. As well, it provides students a chance to build a sense of class community and camaraderie. Self. Self-reflection can be utilized as an efficient form of formative assessment. By having students check in with their own learning, instructors facilitate their class in engaging in metacognition. This allows students to gain a deeper understanding of course content while being able to analyze their own past performances. Remember, one particularly helpful aspect of formative assessment is the next steps, which identifies what, specifically, should be the focus for improvement. These next steps provide clear guidelines which can be used as evidence of improvement. While much of this formative feedback can be given orally, it is recommended that any formal discussions be documented so that improvement can be documented along with it. Be it feedback from a peer, themselves, or their instructor, student learning reaps benefits from feedback. Scott found that students' ability to produce and recognize work of a higher quality improves as a result of a social dialogue around self or peer assessment and self or tutor-generated feedback. Through the active facilitation of a within-group feedback dialogue, students are able to both improve the quality of their subsequent work and their ability to recognize those characteristics of their work that make it better. Let us now explore another example of group assessment, but this time with a different goal in mind. For this example, what is the goal of the group assignment? Example 2. Build teamwork while demonstrating learning. For students to gain experience in collaboratively creating a product which demonstrates both individual learning and teamwork. The next question that must be considered is, will the assessment be summative or formative? In this example, the assessment will be summative, as it is the evaluation of student learning. If you intend to summatively assess students' group work, it is strongly recommended that you build in multiple opportunities for formative assessment of these skills, so that students understand the path they've taken to reach their final grade. As well, formative assessment along the way acts as a check-in, so that both the instructor and the student can get a sense of how things are going. When we are summatively assessing group work, we are often assessing the product. But before we assess the product, we must also ask ourselves as instructors, how am I supporting the process? For example, all students must have a group meeting to provide each other with feedback about their group contributions before the third week of class. Or, as an instructor, you can drop into a groups meeting twice throughout the process to give feedback to your students and check in with their collaborative work. Once we know what the point of the group assessment is, and whether it is formative or summative, we should then decide who has input on this assessment. In a 2019 study, Sridharan and colleagues found that students are capable of accurately and consistently judging their peers' performance to a large extent. However, the findings also suggested significant peer grading bias when peer marks contribute to final grades. Remember, peer assessment can be done in the open or anonymously. When given in secret, more honest comments can be expected from students. The spread of scores is also higher in an anonymous peer assessment. The most important takeaway is that the instructor is ultimately responsible for the assigned grade. Student input certainly has its benefits, but should never be solely relied on for accurate assessment. After figuring out who will be involved in this summative assessment, we can then find a way to break down a student's grade in an appropriate way. Instructor-driven assessment. Assessment method. Option A. Single grade for the group. Assessment method. Group receives a grade for a task. All students receive this grade. Instructors often undertake this approach in fields or areas of professional practice where employees will be expected to produce a product in teams irrespective of the process. This approach feels more high stakes for many students because their grade depends on the final result, no matter how or who contributes. Many students react using a divide and conquer approach to the various tasks related to completing the assignment, although the risk for group conflict is high when contributions are not seen as equal or completed to the same standards. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and work on a task. 2. Grade assigned to the product, paper, presentation, or report, is also assigned to each member of the group. Another possibility would be assessment method. Option B. Group and individual grades combined. Individual and group performance are reflected in the final grade. Example assessment process. 1. Students complete individual parts of the task. For example, writing a short individual essay, a journal entry, or a quiz. 2. Students are grouped, compare individual parts, and complete the group task, assignment, portfolio, or presentation. 3. Both individual and group grades assigned by the instructor. For example, 40% for the individual portion and 60% for the group. Group assessment does not only have to come from the instructor. In a group work context, individual students can use provided assessment criteria to accurately assess the work produced by their group or their own contributions. Students are able to use provided assessment criteria to self-assess co-constructed group work, a booklet including their own and their peers' work. If both the instructor and students are involved in the process, one option would be assessment method option A, Self-assessment. Students self-assess on their own contributions to the team process. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and given instructions to complete a task. 2. Each student completes a self-assessment on their contributions to the group process. 3. The group completes and submits the task. 4. Both the self-report and the final product are assessed by the instructor. For example, 20% for the individual portion and 80% for the group portion. Another choice involving both the student and the instructor is assessment method option B, peer assessment. Students assess their peers' contributions to the team process. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and given instructions to complete a task. 2. Each student completes a peer assessment, anonymous or open discussion, for each member of the group. The instructor reviews peer assessments. Remember the UAPPOL policy. 3. Both peer assessment and the final product are assessed by the instructor. For example, 20% for the peer assessment and 80% for the group mark. Remember, if you intend to summatively assess students' group work or have students assess each other, it is strongly recommended that you build in multiple opportunities for formative assessment throughout the task. Let us now explore a third and final example of group assessment, again, this time with a different goal in mind. For this example, what is the goal of the group assignment? Example 3. Develop professional interpersonal skills. To build communication, interpersonal, and team skills within the students in preparation for life beyond studies. Remember, if you decide to grade professional interpersonal skills, you must ensure that you have a learning outcome in your course attached to this type of assessment. If this is the goal, a 2016 study by Dijkstra and colleagues reminds instructors to ensure that collaboration is beneficial for the end result. To do this, the product should be related to a collaborative process in the professional practice, meaning that the collaborative work is realistic and feels authentic. The next question which must be considered is, will the assessment be summative or formative? In this example, the assessment will be summative, as it is the evaluation of student performance. Once we know what the intended outcome of the group assessment is, and whether it is formative or summative, we should then decide who has input on this assessment. Again, we must consider if the assessment will only come from the instructor, or are fellow students involved in the process as well? Is self-reflection or a self-appointed grade part of the assessment? After figuring out who will be involved in this summative assessment, we can then find a way to break down a student's grade in an appropriate way. So what if we decide that this assessment will be instructor-driven? Our first option is option A, peer assessment. Assessment method. Individual and group processes are graded. The group product is graded as well. The example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and given a task to be completed in a wiki or a Google document. Individual contributions to the product are tracked. Comments and debates amongst team members are documented through meeting minutes and platform chats. 2. Summaries of individual contributions and the group process are submitted to the instructor based on hard data and documentation. 3. The instructor assigns 3 marks: individual contribution, group process, and the final product based on a rubric. For example, 20% for the individual contribution, 30% for the group process, and 50% for the final product. A second option would be option B, group and individual grades combined. Assessment method. Group submission is graded. Individual submissions are graded as well. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and given a task to complete. For example, a case study, assignment, or a report. Students submit the task to the instructor for a grade. 2. Students individually take a test based on the content of the group task. If you are summatively assessing group work that has the goal of students developing professional communication skills and have decided that both the instructor and students should have input on the assessment, the first assessment method you could use would be option A, distributed grades. Assessment method. Available marks for a task are distributed to group members based on their contribution to the group process. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and given instructions to complete a task, worth, for example, 100 points. 2. Upon completion, the group decides how many points are allocated to each student in the group. A rationale is written to the instructor, who makes the final decision about the grade assigned to each student. To clarify, by this we don't mean you should divide 100 percentage points amongst a group, leaving a group of 4 individuals, each with a failing grade of 25%. Instead, interpret the points allotted to each student into a grade. For example, if we interpreted a mark out of 30, 20 points would be a 66%, 25 points would be an 83%, and 30 points would be 100%. A second option would be option B, similar grades. Assessment method. All group members receive the same grade. Yellow and red cards are used to moderate the process. Example assessment process. 1. Students are grouped and work on a task. 2. However, a group member may be given a yellow card, warning to participate in the group more, or a red card, which removes the student from the group and that student is graded a 0. If you choose to use this method, ensure that students are aware of what warrants either a yellow or a red card infraction. Again, if you intend to summatively assess students' group work or have students assess each other, it is strongly recommended that you build in multiple opportunities for formative assessment of these skills so that students understand the path they've taken to reach their final grade. According to the UAPPOL, the instructor of the course is ultimately responsible for ensuring the accuracy of a student's final grade at the University of Alberta. That means that, should a student appeal their final course grade, the instructor will ultimately be responsible to define how that grade was assigned. There are many different ways to assess students in their group work, but the way you choose to assess your students must be rooted in the intended learning outcome of the group work assignment.